Hello, everyone, and welcome to Story Station from Words Alive. I'm Mr. Jim. I'll be your conductor today. And today we are going to read a book called Pantaloon, brought to us by our friends at Chronicle Books, and written by Katheryn Jackson, illustrated by Stephen Salerno. Before we get started, let's get ready to read, okay? We're going to start with putting our reading eyes on, right? So we make these circles, we put them here, and we focus, right, on the book that I'm going to read. And then we take these C's, we put them behind our ears so that we're listening intently, okay? And then lastly, we're going to put on this magical button for our voice, because I'll be asking you questions throughout and allow you to answer them with me, okay? And then next we're going to do our song, though, that gets us ready to talk about books and be familiar with them. And it goes a little bit like this. The title's on the front. The title's on the front. Hey ho, biblio, the title's on the front. The author writes the words. The author writes the words. Hi ho, biblio, the author writes the words. And the illustrator draws. The illustrator draws. Hi ho, a biblio, the illustrator draws. And the spine binds the book. The spine binds the book. Hi ho, a biblio, the spine binds the book. And now it's time to read. And now it's time to read. Hi ho, a biblio, now it's time to read. Are you ready? Me too. So we look at this book and we look at the cover. What do we have on there? What's the first thing you see? This cake, maybe, huh? Oop, over here. This big cake. And then we have a dog. That's our title character, Pantaloon. What kind of dog do we think that is? A terrier? No. I think a poodle, but we'll find out more. And he's on a bike, and he's got a piece of cake right here in his hand while he rides the bike with the big cake on his handlebars. Well, let's find out what kind of baker he is, shall we? This is a title page, and we see Pantaloon, a box of baked goodies. And again, this is by Katheryn Jackson, illustrated by Stephen Salerno. One morning, Pantaloon hopped on his shiny red bicycle and headed straight for the baker's shop. Oh my, he said to himself, I never can get enough of those delicious baked and iced things, right? Baked and iced things. Now, at that moment, the baker, who looked like a jolly round potato, was making a list of things he had to bake that morning. Pies and cakes with strawberry icing, gingerbread man with sugar and spicing, 12 wedding cakes with lots of layers, 9 birthday cakes, and chocolate eclairs. Sounds lovely, cried the baker, but I'll never be finished by noon unless I have some help. So he put a sign in the window that said, Help Wanted. Now, who do you think saw that sign? When Pantaloon saw that sign, he fairly flew into the shop. I'm a helper, he said, licking his lips. Oh, no, Pantaloon, said the baker. You look to me as if you'd eat more than you'd bake. There he is, Pantaloon, looking at all the wonderful treats in the baker's case. He opened the door very wide and said, Goodbye, Pantaloon. Then, since he was later than ever, the baker began at once to mix and beat and bake. Well, before long, another helper came tripping into his shop. This one seemed to be a very nice old lady in a big bonnet and a blue shawl. Now look at this, boys and girls. Do we think that's a lady? No, that's Pantaloon. I'm a lovely cook, she said, and I never eat between meals. Well, then you're the helper for me, laughed the baker, so happy that he danced the old lady round and round his shop. But her shawl caught on the counter and her bonnet bounced off her head. And this wasn't a nice old lady at all. It's Pantaloon, cried the baker, throwing up his hands. Goodbye, gulped Pantaloon. He leaped on his bicycle and hurried along to the barber shop. But all the time he was being clipped and combed and curled, he was trying to think up a new plan for getting to be a helper in that bakery shop. After a great hustle and bustle, the baker was ready to ice his cakes. He opened his sugar bin, and it was empty, right down to the bottom. No sugar! Oh, away he ran in his going-to-market hat. Then back he came, carrying such a large bag of sugar that he never saw Pantaloon's bicycle, which had somehow rolled in front of his door. Oops! Cried the baker, and down he came, sugar and hat and all in a heap. So we see the baker tripped over Pantaloon's bicycle and landed on his head on the ground. Ouch! When Pantaloon saw what had happened, he wanted to hide under the barber's chair. But he ran bravely out and helped the angry, bruised and bumped baker into his bed. Don't worry about a thing, he said. Well, then he mixed the icing, iced the cakes, loaded everything into the baker's truck, and delivered all the cakes and cookies in the nick of time. Right? See how helpful Pantaloon was after all. People were delighted to have their pies and cakes and cookies brought to them by such a prompt poodle. See, he is a poodle. Maybe I am, grinned Pantaloon happily. But on the way back, he remembered it was his bicycle that had caused all the trouble. Oh me, he cried. I'll never dare show my face in the baker's shop again. So he parked the truck and went home. Well, before long, the baker was back in his truck, in his shop. He mixed and baked and iced more busily than ever because now he had more customers than ever. And they said, "Why, where's Pantaloon?" they asked. And they said, "Well, how you must miss him." "Well, my goodness," said the baker, very much surprised. "Well, I do miss Pantaloon. And what do you know about that?" In the meantime, Pantaloon was playing his guitar and singing. What care I for cakes with layers, or gingerbread men, or chocolate eclairs? He tried on all his hats and pretended each one looked much finer than a baker's tall white hat. But he didn't fool himself one bit. "It's no use," said Pantaloon. He still wanted more than anything to be a baker. Right? Meanwhile, the baker was looking all over town for Pantaloon. Everyone said, "No, I haven't seen him." and the baker went sadly back to his shop. He put on his tall white hat, which we call a toque. And suddenly, he had such a splendid idea that he grinned a wide grin and began to bake the biggest, roundest, and most beautiful cake ever. Now, Pantaloon was in his bathtub. He played guitar, and now he's in his tub, taking a bath. He was scrubbing his back with a long-handled brush. Through the window, though, came the most beautiful smell of that beautiful cake. In a wink, Pantaloon was out of his bath. He hurried down the street, holding a big green umbrella in front of him. This way, I can see the baker shop, and the baker can't see me. He was worried that the baker was still angry at him. But no, right? We know better. And he stopped in front of the window. That wonderful shop looked even more wonderful. It was filled with pies and cakes with all kinds of icing, gingerbread man with sugar and spicing, and wedding cakes with lots of layers, and birthday cakes and chocolate eclairs. And right in the very middle of the window, tipped forward so you could read the letters, was a beautiful, big, and round cake that said, "Please, Pantaloon, come back." See that big, gorgeous cake? "Here I am," laughed Pantaloon, bursting into the shop. "At last," cried the baker. He put a tall white hat on Pantaloon's head and sliced the cake. You can see the words from the shop that says bakery. Then, side by side, the two sat in the window, eating and laughing and chatting away, the two happiest bakers in the whole world. In our last picture, we see Pantaloon, now in his element, right? Rolling out the dough, perhaps a pie crust, right? Now that he's a bona fide baker. Well, that's our story from today on Words Alive Story Station. Thank you to our good friends at Chronicle Books for allowing us to read it, and looking forward to seeing you next time on Story Station. Bye now.